Barcelona are favorites to win La Liga, and that remontada with João Félix and Cancelo highly involved. I told you the Félix Lewadowski duo was going to be one of the best to watch, and he is delivering exactly just that. João Félix and João Cancelo at Barcelona, 4 games played, 4 wins. Unreal that Felix has 3 goals, 2 and 2 assists, and he can always be mentioned as one of the best players on the pitch when he's playing with Barcelona. Clear intention to prove all the haters wrong. Barcelona.
Yeah. I just, I'm going to take the other side of the coin here for you. Where the Joaos have excelled, absolutely, and I don't think anyone expected. Well, I did not expect them to have as quick and as succinct of a influence right away. But my goodness, have I been proven wrong? I mean, Felix had 2 goals and assists versus Royal Antwerp. That was a butt whooping. And then he comes back, and I think he was the one that jump started the remontada. And I believe that this is the first La Liga squad. Barcelona was the first La Liga squad in 14 years to win when down at least 2 goals past the 80th minute. I mean, you're talking about leaving it late. They played crappily for the most part for the first 80 minutes of the game and then decided to turn it on. And I agree with you. That is an intangible. That is something that is a squad chemistry thing that you absolutely will need to defend your La Liga title. But at the same time, you can play the game, the other side of the coin, other side of the pillow, whatever way you want to put it, Alex. You can play the game and say, why were they in that spot in the first place, right? And if you get in that spot against, it could be, Gavi, who early on this season, people were like, why do people like Gavi? Well, that's why you like Gavi, because he wears his heart on his sleeve, He literally jump-started that whole thing, and I'm 100% in agreement with you, Alex. But, I mean, you obviously do that against Real Madrid. You do that, what is it, October 28th? Is that when they next play?
Oh, yes.
Right? The first El Clasico? Yes. You do that, you're probably not coming back when it comes down to that. Or maybe you do it against, instead of Celta Vigo, you do it against the Real Sociedad or something of that nature. Maybe you don't come back. So you can make that argument, but I 100% agree with you. It has been masterful piecing together of a roster amidst, obviously, their financial inconsistencies or their financial headaches that they have to kind of navigate through. It has been absolutely masterful, and they have been wonderful at also giving chances to guys like Lamine Yamal. Days after Lamine Yamal was named La Liga's U23 Player of the Month, Alex, he goes on to become the second youngest player in UEFA Champions League history, and he's only 2 months older than Moukoko, right, when Moukoko became the youngest player in Champions League history. So just little things like that, yes, Xavi deserves credit. Laporta absolutely deserves credit. But in the end, I still think Real Madrid is built to win this back this season. So I will still pick Real Madrid when all is said and done. But I think we're going to get a first real data point on October 28th.
Well, and a big data point, too, would be the Champions League game. 5-0 win to Royal Antwerp. Yeah. Something that last season, they weren't as confident in the Champions League, too. It was a more difficult group. I agree with you. And Porto game against Barcelona, that will be interesting. But yes, Lewandowski, in his last 7, Lewandowski has 7 games, 6 goals, 5 assists. João Félix is meant to assist João Félix. He's here to assist. And that duo is honestly, when you watch them play, it looks like it's meant to be. I really think Félix is proving people wrong. And I'm going to say this could be a bold statement for the people at home, but I think Barcelona fans do agree with me. Since Dani Alves, there hasn't been a right back with as much potential to be so solid than João Cancelo. Sergi Roberto wasn't that. He's versatile, but he's not that. Serginho Dest was not that. Nelson Smith was not that. Cancelo can be one of the best fullbacks in the world at Barcelona with Baldé in the other side. So that is a key aspect that Barca has changed this season. And the second thing I got to say too is Gavi. Gavi is Nick. The tools he has offensively, defensively, I honestly think he's irreplaceable. He's getting to that stage, and he's only 19 years old. Gavi will be a generational talent for Barcelona and for Spain. The assist to Cancelo, that is pure vision of a player that only Gavi could have done in that given moment, in my point of view. There's a complete understanding in that sense. And Xavi's record in La Liga is 70 matches, 50 wins, 10 draws, and 10 losses. Considering everything that's happening in this team, that is so bold, and they will be back-to-back La Liga winners, in my point of view. Improving players like Gavi, Lamine Yamal, Baldé, Ronald Araújo, so many quality players. And Kounde, much better this season.
Yeah. Well, I also think credit needs to be given to Ter Stegen because he definitely had a few saves. Like Celta, they could have, I wouldn't say iced that game, but they could have had a couple more goals in that game before that 8-minute ridiculous remontada where they scored 3 goals in 8 minutes to win the thing. But Ter Stegen kept them in it. And I just want to ask it, Pedri's out. Frenkie de Jong rolled, it looks like a high ankle sprain for him, and he might be at a race to be back for El Clasico. Now, I think he'll 100% be back for El Clasico. I don't think there's an issue there.
Mate. 7 weeks.
It
could be 7 weeks.
Yeah, is that what they're saying? Oh my. Okay, so the initial tweet I saw was only like 4 weeks. So 7 weeks. Ooh, so you think? I mean, they got Gundogan. Oriol is playing very well. You think that's material? I mean, he's very central to how Xavi plays.
It's true.
So. Like, gonna be interesting.
I think that game is gonna be so interesting because Frenkie de Jong, as you said, very important. But I hope Pedri's gonna be back in time to play that game. And yes, it's a lot of variables are changing. But like Real Madrid haven't been playing with Vinicius Junior. Real Madrid don't have Courtois. Eder Militão. Real Madrid have their own demons to face. But yes, they're playing great football with Jude Bellingham. Jude Bellingham that scores a late winner against Union Berlin. Once again, the whole Bernabeu does the celebration. Iconic already in such a short period of time. Generation, and has elevated himself towards being a Galactico. Jude Bellingham. But yes, mate, Vitor Roque, I just want to say last thing with Barca is Vitor Roque, that injury. I just hope that when it comes to January, Vitor Roque is back and healthy because this season, Vitor Roque has 20 goals and 8 assists. This is a pure striker, such a quality forward that can compete for the place against Lewadowski that's 35. He can learn so much, and they need players like that. Barcelona. And Dembele, I just wanted to say 0 goals and 0 assists. Dembele. This
brutal,
is
man.
Too good now.
the PSG's still got some soul searching to do. But listen, I want to echo your sentiments about Vitor Roque because I think the more heartbreaking thing for me is, yes, he's got a next chapter ahead with Barcelona. I'm pretty certain he's going to kill it in a good way with Barcelona. But the more heartbreaking thing for me is for him, that injury is likely the final impression that he has. Right, in the Brazilian Real, right? That's probably the last minutes he plays because the Brazilian Real season ends, I believe, in December, and he's looking at 3 months plus on the sideline. So wishing him not a quick recovery. I wish him a full recovery. Also. Take your time, get back, and I think he's going to be a massive piece of Xavi's arsenal in the future. And I shouldn't say Arsenal because that's another team, but you know what I mean when I'm saying that, because he's got a wonderful amount of opportunity ahead of him. But
you're saying another team. The City group have a big impact right now in La Liga too, with Girona, as it seems.
A Girona
that has a player named Savio that, just like Doku, he's a pure winger. Savio and Doku are pure wingers, and both in City group. Savio has 2 goals, 2 assists in his last 2 games, and please start watching this left-footed winger that has a lot of creativity and is willing to play so much. And at Girona, he has the time and the way to develop that he is. I wanted to give a shout out.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, this is actually Girona is a Catalan club. They are about an hour away from Barcelona. I have been to their stadium. I have been to the city. It's a small city, but it's absolutely beautiful. And for those that might not know, if you watch Game of Thrones, a lot of Game of Thrones was actually filmed there for some of the seasons. But Girona, in and of itself, this stadium is so very unassuming. It's small. This is not Camp Nou, but you are on top of the field. And it is so cool to see this, Alex, for them to be unbeaten in 6 games. They were top of the table for a second. They have scored as many goals as I believe, let me get this right, scored as many goals as Barcelona, and they've only conceded 1. So Catalonian clubs are absolutely, front and center in La Liga this season, and it's absolutely wonderful to see. But Savio, Alex. Savio is 19 years old. Winger. He's part of City Football Group, for those that people don't know, right? He's on loan technically from Troy, which is a satellite club of City Football Group. And last season, he couldn't get a sniff of the field at PSV Eindhoven. So to see him thrust into it here with Girona and to be just tearing it up, 2 goals, 2 assists in his last 2 games, it's great to see. But you also got Jan Couto, another City Football Group player playing right back for them. You've got a former NYCFC kid, Yangel Herrera. He's not really a kid anymore, but he was a heck of a player when he was in Major League Soccer. And you've also got Daley Blind and Eric Garcia, Blind, who severed ties with Ajax, right, last season, and Eric Garcia, who severed ties with Barcelona, only to move to another Catalonian club. So it's a wonderful piecing together, and it might not last, but it is great to see this hot start. So I'm really, really glad you brought them up, because if you weren't going to do it, I was going to do it.
And they did sell Tati Castellanos, the star striker Girona.
They did.
And they're having a better season, at least starting. Great to mention. 6 games unbeaten, and the Catalunya teams are playing wonderful football. And Eric Garcia, that's such an interesting one. And Blind too, it's always shocking. But you said Savio, and I wanted to give a connection here. That La Liga this season has 3 wonder kids that are special left-footed players. It's Savio, that we see at Girona. It's Lamine Yamal, that we see at Barcelona at 16. And it's Takefusa Kubo at Real Sociedad with 4 goals scored and a remontada that he had a high impact against Getafe. This is a special player. And Kubo and Mitoma for Japan, they're one of the best duos internationally playing at wing. And they're both going to be in the next 5 years playing together? That is a great scene right there with the Japan national team. And Real Sociedad did draw 2 to Inter. So Real Sociedad does a remontada against Getafe. They draw against Inter. They have players like Oyarzabal, Brahis Mendes, what a player he is. Kubu that is going bold. Pay attention to this team because they have great players. Do you agree with me, Brett?
Yep. I 100% agree with you, and you mentioned all the big players. The only other player I'd throw in there is Mikel Merino. He was once on the books at Newcastle back in the day, and I only wonder, man, if he was at Newcastle now. But Merino, who has unfortunately struggled with injuries as of late, is also back healthy, and he was part of that Getafe win. That was a lot closer than it should have been. But to bring it back to Takefusa Kubo, because you asked me a very poignant question last week, whether or not he would be able to go in and slot in at Real Madrid and have a high impact. And I said, I don't think he's good enough to be. I have a feeling that by the end of the season, he's going to prove me wrong. I really do. I have a feeling he's going to prove me wrong because even though he's slight, even though, he's a different kind of Arda Güler-ish, except he's older than Arda Güler in that sense. But he has, even in the games that they've lost, like the game against Real Madrid, Kubo impressed. He was wonderful, off the ball, on the ball. He didn't wind up on the score sheet, but he was one of the better players on the field. That was not always there with Takefusa Kubo. He has barely had one stinker this season. Every game, he has been very impactful, even if it did not wind up getting his team the 3. So I am starting to turn. It's only been a week, but I'm starting to turn my tide on that thought process with Kubo, and I hope it happens because my goodness, Japan, Kubo and Mitoma, and a bevy of other wonderful players. Japan is going to be the strongest Asian country for many, many, many years to come. many years to come.
Fucks right there with what you're saying. And yes, Kubu, just for the people at home to understand, Real Madrid's situation with Kubu is this. If Kubu leaves for the release clause, Real Madrid will be receiving 27 million. But if Real Madrid wants to keep Kubu, they'll have to pay 33 million right now. That is the option. And I think Real Madrid at the end of the season, they will play for a right winger like this that gives so many guarantees. It's so reminiscent of Odegaard. What we see from Kubo, and we see Odegaard now as a world-class player, 24, and Kubo's 21. So I think that Real Madrid will be doing this. I think they'll stay with him, and it's interesting that you're mentioning.